Oh my gosh, everybody's paying attention to the Luka Doncic and AD trade and thinking that that is what's moving the needle in the NBA. But everybody's missing out on the actual trade that is moving the needle in the NBA. And how I'm going to say that Atlanta, my home team, poured a sneaky leak on the NBA without anybody noticing. So if you weren't paying attention because you were so focused on AD and Luca, which what both of them are paper thin glass, going to get hurt. AD is already out for a month. Luca was soon to follow, but neither one of those teams are going to the NBA Finals. Let's be real. But one team that most likely now has a greater opportunity of going to the NBA Finals is the Cleveland Cavaliers because they got my boy, DeAndre Hunter. Now, I will admit, when I first heard the news while me and my wife was having a nice cigar over at 1911 Cigar Lounge in Cibolo, Texas, I was hurt. I was dismayed. I threw a fit for a second. And then I started reading the trade. Then I started realizing the trade. But first, let's look at it how did Cleveland get better? Well, when you look at Cleveland's run, with them already having one of the most surprising uh, come ups of the year, being the number one team in the league, to pick up DeAndre Hunter, who was on the way to becoming the sixth man of the year. I got to admit, the only thing that was holding him back from becoming sixth man of the year was the losing record or the mid card record that he was having in Atlanta. Of course, Pritchard up there in Boston was going to get it because he was playing for the number two team in the Eastern Conference. But now, my boy DeAndre is definitely going to get that six man of the year award if he can maintain his health during the latter half of the season. But when you look at a team that already featured Darius Garland, Devon D. Mitchell, Max Strauss, who is in and out right now, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, you got three All Stars on this team. You got Evan Mobley coming up, Evan Mobley as an All Star. You got D. Mitchell, and you also got Darius Garland, all Stars. With the primary backup as far as a wing being Isaac Okoro, now you add DeAndre Hunter as your backup to Evan Mobley in the four spot, or even your starting small forward. This team just got the one thing that it definitely needed in order to compete against Boston. Because one of the things you have to recognize when you play Boston is that when the stars go out and that bench comes in, there's not that much drop off. So the reason why most teams begin to lose to Boston is because that bench will ball out on you. You never know when little Pritchard and the other one's gonna come in there and devastate your team or at least keep their team in the game. But now Cleveland has the soon to be sixth man of the year coming off the bench or even starting. If he starts, it'll be one of the most dynamic lineups that you'll see in the NBA right now, as far as the starting lineup is concerned. And if you put Max Strauss or Evan Mobley on the bench, you still got him and Okoro coming in as your sixth and seventh man. You got a team, and you know that when you get into the playoff, the roster gets a lot shorter. The rotation gets down to about a 8-man rotation at best. So Cleveland has just put themselves in contention to win it all. The Lakers aren't winning it all. Dallas, they're not winning it all. It's going to be one of the teams out of the East. It's going to be either the Celtics or it's going to be Cleveland. And right now, Cleveland just said, Boston, what you got on that bench? Because we just got something on our bench that's going to match your bench. So Cleveland has done something that actually makes a difference beyond all the AD and Luka talk. But let me tell you how Atlanta just fleeced them jokers as well. You see in this trade, Atlanta was trying to do two things. One, you got to make the team better. Because if the team is not better, then this offseason, you're looking at losing Trae Young. And on the open market this upcoming summer, what are you going to get for Trae Young? How many teams want a small guard who's a prolific scorer? Definitely an all-star, but he's a small guard. There's not many teams out there in the need for that. So you're not going to get what Trae Young is worth, and Trae Young is worth a lot. And I know many people don't like Trae Young. They always talking about his defense, but tell me There are no point guards up there. There are very few point guards who are complete, who give you that both 3 and D. You're just not going to get that 3 and D. It's just not coming out of the point guard. We don't say anything about Kyrie not being the greatest defender, but they try. They do what they can. But what do you got to surround Trey with? You got to surround them with shooters and defenders. And Atlanta just did that. In the same way that they fleeced New Orleans with the DeJounte Murray trade and got back Dyson Daniels. Now, many people, when that trade happened, what were they saying? Oh, Atlanta got fleeced. Look what they gave up. They gave up Devontae Murray. They only got Dyson Daniels and Larry Nance. Oh, they got hurt. But what happened? Dyson Daniels should get Defensive Player of the Year. A consistent scorer, starting 2 guard, backup point guard. Now everybody's changed their tune. Now everybody's talking about the fact that Dyson Daniel was the steal of that trade. The same thing is expected to happen in this trade, except it'll be an equal show, an equal balance. D Hunt is going to do great up in Cleveland, as long as he can stay healthy. We do know that he has had that problem, and that's been one of the issues we've seen in Atlanta, where we know he's always had this dog in him, always had this potential. We're finally seeing it after so many years. But what are we trading for? Consistent vets. I, as an Atlanta fan, was hurt so many times by Caris LeVert. All of a sudden, there's that one guy on the team unaccounted for that comes up and blasts Atlanta. And then we got Niang, 3-point shooter extraordinaire, shooting 47%, but over a career, and before he came in, was shooting 50%. A definite 3-point threat. And then we didn't just stop there. Now, although I love my guy Bogey, but we traded Bogey, who has been hurt more and more consistently, for Terrence Mann and Bones Hyland. Now, Bones Hyland was put on waivers, so we don't expect him to play for the Atlanta Hawks at all. But we got Terrence Mann. Now, those 3 players that I just mentioned, Terrence Mann, Niang, and Caris LeVert, what do they bring to Atlanta? Well, for 2 players, we got 3. And we got 3 players who are more consistent as far as their health is concerned. When you look at George Niang, then what we got is a guy who consistently will give you 8 or more points per game, who is a consistent 3-point threat. You can't leave him alone, which gives Trey a 3-point threat that he can kick to. So this makes Trey's game a lot easier when you bring in someone who has to be respected from the 3-point line. Then you bring in Terrence Mann, another decent 3-point shooter, who's only been giving you about 6 points. But just like with Niang, when given the opportunity to play, Niang, who went out and scored 18 points, 16 points in the first couple of games, and here we have Terrence Mann, who just scored 12 points against against Orlando last night. You have another decent threat, another guy who slashes, another guy who can finish at the rim. So you give Trey more people who can play, and he can also handle the ball. And honestly, the one I love the most is Caris LeVert. He gives you a veteran presence. He's also a guy who, on any given night, can give you 20 points. He averages 10, sure. But when you look at the team he's playing with, of course, he's not going to get those kind of minutes to be able to average those points that he was getting in previous years when he was balling out, hurting my Atlanta Hawks on almost every game. But now he's here. So what Atlanta has done is went out and taken away 2 often injured wings and shooting guard and brought in 3 not as often injured wings and shooting guards who can give you just as much production, just as much defense, and give spacing on the floor, which is what Trey Young needs. As long as we make it into the second round of the playoffs, which we will, because we've been winning ever since these guys have gotten there. We've won 3 in a row. Hopefully we'll win another one tomorrow night. You're going to see Trey Young desiring to stay there. And have y'all seen what Mo Bamba been doing? Let's keep it smoking. Nothing like Stogies and hoops.